So, wir schauen Scientology is Surprisingly Mental, heißt dieses Video. Video, das mir vorgeschlagen wurde. Und ich weiß nicht, was mich erwartet. Ich weiß, dass Scientology als Religion sehr seltsam sein kann. So, ich habe zumindest kleine Sachen so immer mal gehört. Aber was wirklich dahinter steckt, was eigentlich bei Scientology eigentlich abgeht, ich habe keine Ahnung und ich habe auch null Ahnung, was jetzt in diesem Video mich hier erwartet. Also, erfahren wir es gemeinsam. Also, Scientology is surprisingly mental. Schauen wir es uns an. Gehen wieder hier rein. Informativ und unterhaltsam. Na, hoffen wir es mal, weil wenn nicht, gibt's Ärger.
Scientology, the ology of science. You know the name, you know the vibe.
Moment. Jetzt, wo er es gerade so gesagt hat, ist es mir gerade auch aufgefallen. Weil Ology bedeutet doch die Wissenschaft von etwas. Und Science ist ja von Science, also Scienceology, also quasi die Wissenschaft der Wissenschaft? What the fuck? Das ist mir vorher nie aufgefallen.
Vibe is weird, but really, when it comes down to it, you have no real idea what the hell Scientology is.
Das stimmt
Funnily
wohl.
enough, neither do most Scientologists. It is one of the few religions in the world that keeps its doctrine entirely behind a paywall. Many paywalls. You see, within Scientology, information is heavily compartmentalized. There are many tiers through which church members can progress. To make it to OT level 8, the equivalent of achieving Champion 1 in Overwatch or Grand Wizard in the Cool Kids Club, a Scientologist would easily be set back several hundred thousands of earthly monies. But have no fear. Blank Rascal is here. As the benevolent, kindly, generous dictator of the Blank Rascal YouTube channel, I am going to bestow this information upon you for free. That's right, people. Free. It's a Rascal decree. No charge at all.
Ist das jetzt Religionspiraterie, die wir hier gerade betreiben? Irgendwie kommt es mir gerade so vor.
Beat that price. That said, after receiving these secrets, if you feel compelled to give me many thousands of dollars anyway, you can do so on Patreon. No shame in that. By the end of this video,
Würde mich auch freuen, wenn ihr das bei mir machen würdet,
most
aber
Scientologists do themselves. So,
ich habe kein
if you do
Patreon.
ever meet one, be sure to share these secrets with them and save them some money. As for the sacred secrets themselves, I think you'll find that Scientology is surprisingly mental. L. Ron Hubbard, the father of Scientology. Many things can be said about the man, and I'm going to say them all. L. Ron Hubbard was a genius, an explorer, a con man, a US Navy veteran, an abusive husband, a philosopher, a philanthropist, a mediocre science fiction writer, a paranoid
Was von den Sachen, die ich gehört habe, ist er nicht wirklich mittelmäßiger Science-Fiction-Autor gewesen. Eher unterdurchschnittlich, so von dem, was ich gehört habe. Ich weiß es selber nicht, ich habe es nur gehört.
schizophrenic, a paragon of pseudoscience, a pilot, a pillock, a captain of the seven seas, the chosen one, and the Messiah, who alone knew the secrets of our reality. What can be said for certain is that he was a pretty bizarre dude, so naturally, he founded a religion. And understanding Hubbard is the key to understanding how Scientology came to be. So let's try figure the madfucker out, shall we? Born to a military family March 13th in 1911, Hubbard spent his formative years frequently relocating around the United States. He attempted to join the Naval Academy to follow in his father's footsteps, but failed the entrance exam. Hubbard instead attended Woodward School in DC, where he was academically unimpressive but wrote for the school paper. Despite poor grades, he progressed to George Washington University, as they had no entrance exam for him to flunk, where he tried and failed to complete a degree in civil engineering. Notably, Hubbard planned a club trip to the Caribbean to hunt for pirate treasure. This was so poorly organised that almost everyone else went home early and demanded a refund.
Okay, die Sachen gehen ja schon gut los hier gerade. Das ist ja jetzt schon bizarr. Was ist das für ein Leben, was der Typ gelebt hat?
Hubbard naturally refused, which led to the other disgruntled students burning his effigy at the stake. A totally normal university experience. After education, Hubbard became a writer, creating short stories for pulp fiction magazines. He was moderately successful at this, having an active enough imagination for the fledgling genre. He also found a wife, a Miss Margaret Polly Grubb. However, World War II soon struck, and with it came Hubbard's second chance at joining the military. Given his father's history, Hubbard enlisted in the Navy and trained as an intelligence officer. Hubbard's war achievements are as follows. He helpfully sent blockade runner Don Isidro 3,000 miles off course. He was relieved of command of a patrol boat in Boston Harbor for being not temperamentally fitted for independent command. Inexplicably, Hubbard was then given command of a submarine and spent 68 hours in combat against an imaginary enemy sub.
Oh boy. Ich glaube, ich muss mich gerade mental ein bisschen vorbereiten, weil ich war jetzt nicht bereit darauf, was hier gerade abläuft. Was ist das für ein Typ gewesen? Ich kenne seine Lebensgeschichte halt nicht. Und die jetzt einfach so hingeklatscht zu bekommen, ist wirklich, ach du meine Güte.
Which turned out to be a known magnetic deposit. Later, Hubbard erroneously fired upon Mexican territory and was once again relieved of command. He was finally assigned to crew the USS Algo, where he developed many chronic but imaginary pains and discovered the grand conspiracy of attempted sabotage. He was promptly hospitalized. Hubbard also had a tendency to piss himself throughout his military career.
Ah! Nur die Starken kommen in den Garten. Man braucht eine Menge Wahnsinn für eine eigene Religion. Ja, ich glaube auch. Ah! Ist es nicht auch so, dass Scientology für eine lange Zeit auch irgendwie ständig irgendwie Leute verklagt hat, wenn sie irgendwas gegen Scientology gesagt haben? Ich glaube, das machen die nicht mehr, ne? Und ich glaube auch, soweit ich weiß, ist Scientology wirklich fast nicht mehr existent oder sowas? Oder ich glaube, also auf jeden Fall, oder sie existieren auf jeden Fall noch, aber sind auf jeden Fall auf so einem schnell absteigenden Ast. Glaube ich, dass es wirklich ziemlich bergab geht bei denen gerade. Ja, ist am Abstieg, ne? Also wir haben immer weniger Leute, haben immer weniger Geld und so weiter. Also die fällt gerade auch wirklich ein bisschen so in sich zusammen, die ganze Religion. Das ist das, was ich gehört habe, zumindest nach wie vor. Verklagt mich bitte nicht. Ich weiß davon nichts, das sind nur Sachen, die ich gehört habe.
After the war, Hubbard returned to writing, but was in a near constant state of financial crisis. He also found a new wife. Interesting story involving a Mr. Jack Parsons, a rocket engineer and prominent occultist. Hubbard shared in Parsons' passion for depraved sexual acts and worship of the occult. He also began to share Parsons' girlfriend, a Miss Sarah Betty Northrup. Wild stuff, but it gets wilder. The trio hatched a harebrained scheme to purchase luxury boats on the East Coast, sail them to the West Coast, and flip them for a profit. However, at some point, Hubbard decided he didn't like this plan. So he stole Parsons' money, stole Sarah Northrup, bought a yacht, and fled the country. Scientology later has chosen to censor Northrup's existence from their rose-tinted version of Hubbard's life, for reasons I will shortly get to. Anyhow, Parsons was financially ruined, and Hubbard and Northrup were soon married. But Hubbard never actually bothered to divorce his first wife, so the legality of their union was tenuous to say the least. Still, Hubbard continued to be a moderately successful magazine writer, particularly in the science fiction genre, being frequently featured alongside legends like Ray Bradbury and Isaac Asimov, two of the most widely appreciated and respected science fiction writers.
Ach du meine Güte. Hydrogen Bombs versus Coughing Baby. So ist fast der Meme hier gerade.
Of all time. But Hubbard was unsatisfied, a wee bit glum, downright suicidal, and his illicit wife Sarah Northrup was growing rather concerned with his erratic mood and behaviour. He had a growing obsession with psychiatry and would often voluntarily assist in clinics and hospitals, despite potentially...
Aber ist Scientology nicht gegen Psychologen und Psychiatrie? War das nicht so? Aber vielleicht liegt es daran jetzt, dass anscheinend ja L. Ron Hubbard selber irgendwie komplett einen an der Waffel hatte. Meiner Meinung nach. Nach dem, was ich hier gerade sehe. Verklagt mich nicht, Scientology.
These experiences would fool him into an egotistical delusion of intelligence in the psychiatric field. Hubbard clearly had a notion that he had something to contribute to humanity beyond the realms of fiction, but he was woefully lacking in any scientific knowledge or talent. When in doubt, just make shit up. And so, for better or worse, L. Ron Hubbard wrote Dianetics. Dianetics is essentially just a rehashed version of Freudian theory, with some additional superhuman powers. Apparently, Hubbard came up with the ideas following a trip to the dentist that triggered a psychedelic odyssey. Not exactly meticulous research. Hubbard
Warum kann ich das beim Zahnarzt nicht bekommen? Mach ich was falsch?
promised that through Dianetics alone he could cure the common cold, arthritis, dermatitis, allergies, asthma, cancer, coronary difficulties, diabetes, eye trouble, ulcers, sinusitis, and migraines. He also promised that through auditing, which is a delicious blend of therapy, hypnosis, and interrogation, one could achieve a state known as clear, where abilities such as superhuman intelligence and photographic memory could be unlocked. Hitting the shelves in the 1950s, Dianetics was denounced by scientists and literary critics alike, but it was a commercial juggernaut. Springboarding off the crazed success of the book, over 500 Dianetics auditing centers were quickly established across the United States.
500!
In the spirit of good old-fashioned capitalism, people would have to pay hundreds of dollars for the privilege of being audited, which, with very lax financial controls at the time, made old Elron extremely wealthy. Hubbard finally achieved the popularity he had long craved, but it would not last. Dianetics was a craze without much substance, and the craze soon began to fade. It was not helped by Hubbard demonstrating in front of an audience of 6,000 people the powers of a supposedly clear physics student. She could not remember a single formula from her classes, nor could she recall the colour of Hubbard's tie. Dianetics was quite clearly a load of bollocks. Attendance numbers started dropping, and Hubbard robbed most of the centers of foundations blind, leaving them to flounder in debt and crisis. The meteoric rise and fall of the Dianetics movement all happened within the span of a single year. But having briefly suckled the sweet teat of success, Hubbard did not handle the taste of failure well. It was around this time that his wife Sarah Northrop attempted to have him committed, as his delusions and bouts of irrational anger grew too much for her to bear. Hubbard
Ja, also das ist wirklich das, was ich jetzt hier gerade mitbekomme, ne? Dass einfach dieser Mann Probleme hatte. Einfach Probleme hatte und einfach Hilfe benötigte. Also ich will aber eigentlich angefangen, irgendwie mich drüber lustig zu machen, ein bisschen, aber jetzt so, ich weiß nicht, ein bisschen Mitleid kommt bei mir auf.
was now in a state of psychosis, perhaps even paranoid schizophrenia. He had begun to nurture a certain enmity towards modern psychiatrists for not accepting the truth of Dianetics and considering him to be rather loopy. So
Okay, deswegen ist Scientology so gegen Psychiater, weil die Ron Hubbard korrekterweise diagnostiziert haben. Mitleid wäre angemessen, nur hat er sich leider das alles verbockt. Ja, momentan bin ich in dem Mitleidsmoment, aber wir sind ja noch nicht mal bei Scientology, also ich glaube, das Mitleid wird irgendwann weggehen. Das dimmt sich langsam, glaube ich, mit der Zeit dann hier.
in response, Hubbard proved that point by kidnapping Sarah and their daughter, and attempted to play the Uno reverse card to have Sarah herself declared insane and committed. This may sound like an episode of Peep Show, but this actually happened. Fortunately, Hubbard was unable to find a doctor willing to commit the perfectly sane Sarah, so he had to let her go, but he kept their daughter and fled to Cuba.
Bitte was? Hat er das Sorgerecht bekommen oder hat er sein Kind einfach entführt? Was ist der Blick von diesem Kind? Ja, help, auf jeden Fall.
In a last-ditch effort, Hubbard also attempted to have Sarah arrested as a communist spy. In a rambling letter to the FBI that was ignored and simply annotated, appears mental. And so Northrop filed for divorce, accusing Hubbard of subjecting her to sleep deprivation, beatings, strangulation, kidnapping, and exhortations to commit suicide. Hubbard's first wife Polly offered to corroborate her story, claiming she had suffered similarly. And newspapers eagerly reported Sarah's perspective that Hubbard was hopelessly insane, paranoid, and should be committed. A pretty damning assessment. But did Hubbard get help?
Der war in Kuba.
No. Sarah was forced to officially denounce these claims in order to get her daughter back. She signed a letter, written by Hubbard, declaring him to be a fine and brilliant man. Yep. In case you are still wondering who to believe.
Okay, ich hatte gesagt, dass mein Mitleidsgefühl für ihn langsam weggehen würde. Nee, es ist jetzt auf einmal weg.
Later on, Hubbard's mistress Barbara Clouden also claimed him to be paranoid and psychotic, and if we combine the testimony of these three women with the reports from his military career, it is pretty evident that L. Ron Hubbard was indeed a bit of a Fruit Loop, which is why the success of Scientology is all the more baffling. In desperate need of
Ich
money,
glaube eher, dass es
Hubbard
dadurch
pivoted
einfach noch
from
mehr
the
Sinn
failure of
macht.
Dianetics, and by all accounts, intentionally turned it into a religion for profit. In fact, he is directly quoted saying, "You don't get rich writing science fiction. If you want to get rich, you start a religion." And so, upon the broken ground of Dianetics, the religious framework of Scientology was
Sollte
constructed.
ich einfach
Hubbard
irgendwie mal
introduced a
Notizen
new
machen hier,
concept
oder?
beyond the state of clear, known as an operating thetan. This is the stage where truly cosmic mental powers are unlocked. However, these were much harder and much more expensive to reach, with all the secrets firmly locked behind yet another paywall. Hubbard also introduced his followers to the E-meter, a magic machine with 2 tin cans that can read your body's engram energy to discern falsehood from truth. It functions essentially like a polygraph lie detector, only worse, as a polygraph measures factors like breathing, pulse and blood pressure, whilst an E-meter only measures electrical impulses from skin resistance, which can fluctuate for a number of reasons such as sweat,
Wow, das ist einfach ein frühes EKG, was er ihnen da rangepackt hat. Das einfach nicht funktioniert hat und das. Oh, ei.
grip and hand movement, but Scientologist auditors will claim the machine can read your thoughts. Again, the E-meter is obviously bollocks, but it provided a mystical mechanism to give the Church of Scientology more authority over its
Und der
subjects.
Lappen auch noch.
Anyhow,
Er ist ja auch noch
it was
dabei,
a
stimmt ja.
success, a smash, an instant hit. Religious mysticism was exactly what Dianetics needed to save itself from collapse. Scientology was the evolution, and Hubbard's image was reincarnated into a messianic figure. This is their messiah. But Scientology claims to have millions of members to this day, so the religion-for-profit business model obviously has longevity. But what bollocks did L. Ron Hubbard actually whip up to scam?
Wie viele Mitglieder hat denn Scientology eigentlich momentan, also realistisch gesehen? Ich würde mal vermuten, dass es nicht in Millionenzahlen ist. Also,
These people out of their life savings? What do Scientologists actually believe? Well, in his lifetime, Hubbard made many outrageously unsubstantiated claims, one of the most egregious being that he had personally traveled to Venus and seen its railroads and cafes. So why don't we go through the tiers and walk together along the bridge to total freedom? Suppressive person. This is the lowest term in Scientology, reserved for critics and apostates of the religion.
die Bottoms quasi.
Technically, Blank Rascal would count as a suppressive person, but I'm not so much a person, more of an omnipotent internet god, so I reject the label. Scientology sees suppressive persons as fair game for harassment and aggressive litigation. Like all bad religions, critical infidels must be purged. Worse still, it is believed by Scientologists that interaction with suppressive persons can lead to severe illness or even death. A belief instilled to prevent Scientologists from listening to any outside perspectives on their silly little religion.
30.000, ja. So, das ist das, was ich eher vermutet
person,
habe, ja.
or Thetan, or Wog. This is
Wog.
you. You are probably a Wog. This is the Scientologist word for anyone that is not affiliated with the religion. Funnily enough, Hubbard derived the term from the British racial slur for dark-skinned foreigners. This charming man. Pre-clear.
So weit geht's also,
the vast
ja?
majority of the religion exists. Technically, as soon as you enter your first audit, you are no longer a Wog and are considered pre-clear, part of the Church of Scientology. The pre-clears are promised the secrets of the universe and magnetic psychic powers like Tom Cruise has. As such, they do most of the grunt work and pay thousands to the church in hope of reaching clear. Once a person has completed all necessary courses of auditing, they are determined as clear. They are no longer affected by those pesky negative engrams, and they will benefit from increased intelligence, photographic memory, and the aforementioned immunity to illness. The Church of Scientology does not.
Wisst ihr, was geil wäre? Weil wir wissen ja, dass Tom Cruise ein sehr hochrangiges Mitglied ist. Wenn der mal öffentlich richtig fies krank wird, es wäre sehr unterhaltsam zu sehen, was da passiert.
Provide their own statistics, but it is estimated that there are around 75,000 clear people on the globe. After the lengthy and expensive process of becoming clear, you may then be invited to undertake the even lengthier and more expensive process of becoming an operating Thetan, of which there are 8 levels. Level 1 involves a solo audit, extensively testing and training oneself in rigid exercises, with the goal of establishing an exterior viewpoint of one's greater causation within matter, energy, space and time. If it sounds like bollocks, that's because it is. OT2. Again, a solo audit, this time interrogating past incarnations. Oh yeah, Scientologists believe in reincarnation and past lives, but not in a cool way like the Hindus. Scientologists do it in a very sad, very creepy way. See, instead of the karma cycle, Scientology believes only in trauma. The pain and trauma of your past lives prevent you from remembering them. OT Level 2 is designed to interrogate and alleviate that trauma, to allow your eternal memories to flow. In short, it encourages and exacerbates delusions. OT 3, the Wall of Fire. This is the good stuff. Some real gourmet shit. The most closely guarded secret in all of Scientology. The story, the legend of mighty Xenu. Long ago, about 75 million years
Okay, von Sino habe ich gehört, aber nur den Namen.
Exact, there was a mighty galactic ruler known as Xenu, a tyrant, who ruled his subjects through mechanisms of fear and oppression, and Xenu was displeased.
War er ein Nekrontier?
For his galactic confederacy, an empire which spanned 76 inhabited planets, was bloated, dying. Xenu was to blame, of course, but he was not the type of tyrant to take accountability. In the face of an overpopulation crisis, he turned to the only logical solution, being genocide. Fortunately, he knew just the place to commit such atrocities. Tijiak. And so, using the guise of a tax audit, with the help of evil psychiatrists, two things that Hubbard himself hated, but this story is 100% true and not lazily contrived, Xenu lured hundreds of billions of his subjects to the planet Tijiak, drugging and kidnapping them in spacecraft nearly identical to the Douglas DC-8. Upon reaching the Earth, Xenu stacked their helpless bodies next to volcanoes and detonated hydrogen bombs upon them. Their souls became the original Thetans, and Xenu rounded them up with an electronic ribbon, brainwashing them for 36 days with something known as the R6 implant, generating false memories in their minds, including all the religions of mankind. Xenu also wiped their previous memories and left them on Earth to clutch to humanity. Thousands of traumatized body Thetans cling to each person, except you cannot perceive them in any way, and only the most knowledgeable Scientologists are skilled enough to remove them.
Ich hatte noch eben gesagt in meinem letzten Video, dass das Zuhören zu ApoRed meine Gehirnzellen abtötet. Das hier tötet gerade meine restlichen Hirnzellen ab.
Right. Anyhow, Xenu was soon overthrown and imprisoned for his genocidal tendencies. But one day, the doom of Xenu will return, and on that day, the shining spirit of L. Ron Hubbard will spring forth to defend the true believers from Xenu's merciless slaughter. Cool, innit? Are you feeling sick? Because according to Scientologists, hearing this story without proper training will cause you to die from pneumonia. Don't worry, calm down, you're okay. Remember, this religion is a load of bollocks. You being alive right now is proof of that fact. Very few Scientologists ever reach OT3 and face the Wall of Fire. It is by far the silliest thing Scientology has to offer, and it's not even hard to prove it's made up. Hubbard literally wrote the whole story out in a science fiction script called Revolt in the Stars that he failed to get turned into a major motion picture. But don't worry about that. Scientologists just pretend that never happened, and there are actually 5 more OT levels to get through, though none are quite so fun. OT4, a simple drug audit that cleanses the Scientologist spirit of any drug uses to prepare for the next phase.
Ach, ich dachte, es wäre das Gegenteil gewesen. Wie langweilig.
Which is OT5, New Era Dianetics, focused on the removal of body Thetans, audited by another higher ranking OT to ensure you get all those pesky little critters off your skin. The terminology is a bit confusing, as you yourself are a Thetan, whilst the body Thetans are the traumatized souls of Xenu's Holocaust, and you have to cure their trauma by giving the Church of Scientology lots of money, which...
Die Antwort auf alle Probleme in der Welt, ne? Geld. Anscheinend auch im gesamten Universum. Also, man merkt schon, worum es eigentlich geht. Bei Scientology, ne? Es geht um Geld.
brings us to OT6, essentially learning how to conduct OT5 Thetan removal in a solo practice. The process is apparently so difficult to master that its training requires a whole level in of itself, because that's how bullshit tiers work. It's also worth noting that it's common for Scientologists to have to retake levels at their own expense. The constantly shifting goalposts of the internal ranking system helps keep the upper levels of the church in a perpetual struggle. which is good, somehow. OT7, the implementation of the skills learned in OT6 to fully cleanse oneself of body Thetans. Only once you are deemed completely free from their trauma can you reach OT8, the rotten core of the hollow onion. This is the highest level a Scientologist can currently attain. Only about 1,000 people have ever reached this echelon, the overlords ruling our society and nobly steering humanity towards L. Ron Hubbard's grand vision. And their secret? Awesome powers, such as telepathy and magical healing. As a level 8 operating Thetan, you are complete. A master of yourself and of the world. Every desire fulfilled, every goal achieved. Matter, energy, space and time. You know them all. You are them all. And it only cost you everything. Interestingly enough, many Scientologists have quit at this point, realizing they have spent hundreds of thousands of dollars on absolute nonsense. Can't really blame them.
Ja, natürlich, weil wenn dir gesagt wird, oh, jetzt hast du das Ziel erreicht, jetzt kannst du mit Telepathie mit jedem Menschen auf der Welt irgendwie kommunizieren oder irgend sowas, ne? Und dann merkst du, nee, kann ich nicht. Wann denn? Wo denn? Kann ich nicht. Und dann merkst du, oh shit, ich wurde verarscht. Also, aber dann ist es eh schon zu spät, dein Geld haben sie schon.
OT level 8 is where the bridge to total freedom currently ends, but there are rumored to be up to 15 OT levels, providing a full range of cosmic powers that allow one to control space and time at will. Fake powers may include full psychic control over lesser beings, telekinesis, atomic transmutation, astral projection, or the ability to transcend one's body and travel anywhere in the universe, complete enlightenment, communication with God, time manipulation, and personal universe creation.
Moment. Scientology glaubt an einen Gott? Oh, okay.
The church has not yet been able to provide any evidence or training that can actually help a human being achieve these powers. Funny that. So where is Scientology today? Well, ever since the death of L. Ron Hubbard in 1986, the Church of Scientology has been firmly under the control of this creep, David Miscavige. If Hubbard was Scientology's Steve Jobs, Miscavige was his Tim Cook. Since taking over, Miscavige has streamlined and modernized the church, increasing profits and making efforts to normalize Scientology as a mainstream religion, such as buying Super Bowl ads and suckling Mr. Cruz every chance he gets. Although a different breed of cult leader, Miscavige is every bit the worthy successor to Hubbard. He is just as intense, equally deceitful and utterly mental. It is even rumoured that Miscavige was responsible for his mother-in-law's suicide, who was an enemy of Scientology. Apparently she slit her wrists and shot herself 4 times with a rifle. Nothing suspicious there. In addition, no one's seen
Ich habe keine weiteren Fragen, ja, das war absolut genauso passiert.
2005. At best, she is being held captive deep within the church's network. At worst, well, generally people who've been missing for 20 years stay missing. Yeah, maybe I shouldn't be fucking with these people. Too late now, I suppose. On that note, if there are any Scientologists watching this who wish to consider me a suppressive person and want to harass, sue and murder me, here is my address, this is my email, my real name is Nigel Farage. Please do your worst and teach me a proper lesson. As for the rest of my lovely viewers, please do not join Scientology.
Ja, und wenn Scientologen meint sehen, mein Name ist Friedrich Merz. Also.
It's a cult, reveling in the delusions of a long-dead maniac. Pick literally any other religion if you must. I hear Hinduism is pretty groovy stuff, but ideally you should not allow any institution or person to tell you what to think. Except for Blank Rascal, who is always correct and whose word is law. And I thank you for watching, and I love you for caring. Goodbye.
Okay, goodbye. Dankeschön. Das war informativ auf jeden Fall. Also allein jetzt die Lebensgeschichte von L. Ron Hubbard mal zu sehen, was eigentlich der für ein Typ war, war schon interessant genug. Für mich, also. Aber ja, jetzt rückblickend, es erklärt einiges, warum Scientology so ist, wie es ist. Ne? Also jemand wie L. Ron Hubbard, kein Wunder, dass Scientology eben nur so jemand wie L. Ron Hubbard konnte irgend sowas Komisches wie Scientology irgendwie zusammenstellen. Ne? Es erklärt einiges. Es erklärt verdammt viel. Auf jeden Fall. Ja, also, Blank Rascal, vielen Dank für dieses Video. Ich gebe ein Like an ihn und für euch, jetzt fällt mir wieder ein, was ich sagen wollte, an euch, Link, zum Originalvideo findet ihr in der Beschreibung und gebt dem doch auch einen Like und guckt's euch noch mal an ohne mein Gequatsche. Und wenn euch dieses Video hier gefallen hat, dann gebt doch vielleicht mir ein, Abo und ein Like. Ich würde mich auf jeden Fall sehr darüber freuen. Also, wir sehen uns dann beim nächsten Mal. Also, tschau.